spoke with, I believe is willing to serve on the committee, and I would love to serve on that same committee and work on these infrastructure issues.
The core of the drug trade or production and thieving is relatively small group in population, and their identities are pretty well known. If the previous police chief was unable to quash it, what makes you certain a new one will?
Well, if I'm on the select board, when the interviews start, that's one question that I would ask any applicant, is how they would solve this problem. And it's not just one person that can solve the problem. A police chief can do so much, but he has to follow the laws. So they can arrest somebody, but they need enough evidence in order to arrest somebody. And then they bring them to court, and quite often the person that was arrested is slapped on the wrist and sent away. So there needs to be more accountability at the court system too, to help resolve the issue of crime. So, but that's a question that I would ask any applicant for the police chief position, is how they plan to work to resolve this crime issue.
The deplorable road conditions in Hill are directly linked to the road equipment being pummeled prematurely into disrepair or outright need of replacement. What will you do to address the glacial pace at which roads are being resurfaced? This is a neglected issue. We would not need to replace trucks so soon if the roads were not so crappy. All winter, the plows are rattled to death because of those road conditions.
Yep, and I travel over Murray Hill Road about 5 days a week, so I've done that for years. So I go through suspension parts every couple of years on my vehicles. So I feel the pain. So this question goes back to what I mentioned a couple minutes ago about setting up an infrastructure committee. So they can work on the water system, they can work on roads, building maintenance. So all of these infrastructure issues would fall under the infrastructure committee. So this is another long-term plan, and we would have to prioritize again what roads get fixed, what sections of road get fixed. And it's more than just, on some roads it would be okay to maybe repave them, but on a lot of the roads, you need to rip everything down to the base and rebuild it completely. Some of the roads have been around for 200 years, and we're just paving over what's there. And so the frost gets to the pavement every year and breaks it all up, because you have rocks and poor drainage and everything else affecting that pavement. So they have to be ripped down to the base and rebuilt. And that's costly, so we need to plan all that out. And if there is an infrastructure committee, that's what they can work on.
Since you have a very time-consuming job, what assurance do taxpayers have that you are able to give the time and devotion required to tackling the tough issues and keep up with the workload of a select board member? Select board members are not only required to do their duties as a select board member, but they also have to work with budget committee, zoning board, all of them.
Yeah. My current employer is very understanding and very encouraging of having their employees, and it's a municipal job that I have. I'm an assessor in a town in Vermont, and they're very encouraging of having their employees get involved in volunteering for their hometown. So they're very understanding if we need to take time off. Fortunately, most of the meetings that we have here are at night. We have had some during the day, and I've had the opportunity to take the time off and attend the meetings during the day. So I can work remotely if I need to with my job. I can take time during the day if I need to to attend meetings. There may be some conflicts. I have to meet with the select board occasionally in the town I work in, and of course, their meetings are on a Tuesday night as well. So there may be a couple of conflicts, and I've had that already in the past, where I had, I think, 2 nights where I wasn't able to attend the meetings here because I had to meet with the select board in the town that I work in. One meeting was to present my budget for my department where I work and make the presentation to the select board and the taxpayers to get my budget approved. And then I had another meeting with the select board and the taxpayers. We're doing a townwide revaluation, so I had to make a presentation and an update to the select board and the taxpayers on the status of the revaluation and where we were with that. So there may be a couple of meetings that I can't make out of the year. Fortunately, the revaluation that we're doing now will be, we have a couple of months left to that, and that'll be wrapped up in May or June. And then after that, my schedule will be pretty light. So the only time I can really think of a conflict would be maybe the budget presentation again next, I think it's December. So it'll be one, again, maybe 2 meetings that I can't attend.
Well, you've answered all of these questions, but it looks like we have another one right there. Are you willing to take a look at it?
Sure.
And maybe answer what the question says?
Yeah.
Exemption numbers to qualify don't keep in mind inflation. Would you look into exemption money to qualify? Only 3 people
Receive?
receive exemptions currently, no more than $35,000.
Yep, that's a great question. So what we do is every few years, we, as an assessor, assessing department, and as an assessor, we review all the different exemptions and see if they need to be adjusted for inflation. And that's done at least once every 5 years, because what happens, every 5 years in New Hampshire, we have to revalue all property. It's required by the state constitution, by state law. We have to revalue all properties. And in a market like this that we have right now, those assessed values will climb substantially. And so if we don't adjust the exemption amount or the income amounts, a lot of people will fall through the cracks, they'll fall through the net. So they won't qualify because our requirements aren't keeping up with inflation. So for example, we might have a $40,000 exemption amount off the assessed value. Well, that's fine if the assessed value is, say, $200,000. But what happens in a market like this, where now the assessed value is $400,000, we can't keep the exemption amount of $40,000. We might need to increase that. And same thing with the income requirement. The income maximum amount might be, say, $30,000. If you make more than that, it's usually more than that, let's say $60,000. If you make more than that, you don't qualify. Well, with inflation, you might need to bump that up to $80,000 for an income ceiling. You can't make more than that. So we look at those at least once every 5 years during the revaluation. So if we're bringing values up, we want to adjust the exemption amount and the income amount accordingly. It can happen more often than that, but it's going to be looked at least every 5 years.
Well, thank you. You've provided us with a lot of information. Do you have anything to say in closing?
Well, yes. As I stated earlier, I think with my experience, well, I'll back up. One requirement of a selectman is to be very familiar with the state statutes, because nearly everything that a select board needs to do and nearly everything that any municipal department has to do, any municipal employee has to do, is follow the statutes. Everything is, nearly everything is dictated by state statute. So quite often, when somebody's elected to the select board, they aren't familiar with all the state statutes. So there's a steep learning curve for those people, but I'm already familiar with most of the state statutes. And not just assessing related statutes, because as an assessor, I have to work with other departments within any town that I've worked in. So I work with the police department, the planning department, the select board, the town manager. So we're always working together to provide the best service to the taxpayers for the least amount of money. So when I came in as interim selectman about 6 months ago, I was already familiar with a lot of the state statutes, so I was able to just sit down and start working. And so that's a critical point, a critical tool for any selectman. I've already got that tool in my toolbox, so I'm ready to go as far as the state statutes are related. I think that would make me an excellent candidate for selectman.
Well, thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you.
I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
it.